Shalom lekulam, and welcome to our weekly study on the Torah portion. This week's Torah portion is Parsha Tetzaveh, and in this Torah portion we're going to be studying how this Torah portion basically connects us somehow, how studying this Torah portion from the point of view of Kabbalah, specifically studying the garments of the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, connects us to the tree of life and the energies of the tree of life. Also the colors, how these colors basically, and some of the garments of the Kohen Gadol have to do with speech, and basically how we talk and or create basically action or verb. Also we're gonna see, the gematria that help us understand that all these things are basically connected to each other. They somehow are from the same spiritual root. In addition to that, we're gonna see some things like, for example, what kind of connection we need to do. If we need to do connections with the soft part of the soul, or simply, connection with the evil part of our soul, the Yetzirah in our inner being. And also how this is connected to the Brit, to the covenant, and how the covenant have to do with Torah and good deeds, Gameli Hasidim. And then we're going to talk about how all these attire, specifically, the headpiece, have a connection with the names of God, and specifically how that connection is related to what is called the seal, or a mark in our head, in our soul. So after the introduction, we're going to start studying on Parsha Tetzaveh, the third level, and I'll see you after the introduction. Welcome back. Like I mentioned before, this week's Torah portion is Parsha Tetzaveh. This Parsha is found in the book of Shemot, that is Exodus chapter 27 verse 10 to chapter 30 verse 10. And as always, we're going to be using Rabbi Yaakov's Abu Haseira's commentary on the Torah. And if we have time, we're going to read also a little bit from Ramchal about the preparation of the priest and also the inner altar in us, in our soul, basically. Also, as always, we're going to talk about what the Parsha is all about, so we can put it into context, so we can put our study into context, okay? So in this Parsha, we're going to see is that God tells Moshe to receive from the children of Israel, from Bnei Israel, pure olive oil, and in order to light, the olive oil is going to be for illumination, to kindle the perpetual lamp. And the Aharon was supposed to keep burning basically from evening to morning, so it's perpetual. It's called Ner Tamid, and we're going to talk about what that Ner Tamid is all about. Then it goes to the priestly garments that were supposed to be worn by the priests while they were serving in the tabernacle. And we're gonna see that it's gonna talk about ketonet, which is a tunic. It's gonna talk, about a turban and a lot of other garments that have some kind of meaning, and we're going to touch base on those meanings and the garments and their meanings, and how they are related basically to the part that we call Zerampin, and how the part that is called Zerampin also is related to the Mishnah, and how these the study of the Mishnah itself also can connect us to the world of Yetzirah, which is the world of the angel Metatron. In addition to this, a Kohen Gadol wore an ephod, which is like an apron-like garment, and it has different colors and metals in it that we're gonna be also talking about. The Hoshen, breastplate containing the 12 precious stones with the 12 tribes, and also a cloak of blue wool, and we're gonna talk about those as well. And decorative pomegranates in the hem, and they're basically kind of like tzitzis. Well, but then the tzit, which is a golden plate worn in the forehead, which it says, holy to Hashem, and we're going also to talk about that. Also, the Parsha talks about the detailed instructions of the initiation of Aharon and his 4 sons, and this initiation took 7 days. And this initiation was for them to become priests, and we're gonna touch base on why Aharon was chosen for that duty of priesthood. It has to do with shalom, with peace, and that'll be according to Ramchal. And then the Parsha also mentioned the making of the golden altar, in which the incense was supposed to be burned, and that's basically how the Parsha basically closes. So let's start with our study, and I want you to understand that when we're studying these Torah portions, our intention is not only to know all the secrets. Knowledge is nothing, right? If we don't have the right intention should be that we want to know these things so we can connect to the light that the Torah is giving us, okay? So don't try to connect to it intellectually, because you will get nothing out of it. And I know in our studies, we sometimes talk in a way, that is kind of like more intellectual, talking more about gematria and things like that, but that's not the important thing. The important thing is for you to connect to the energy of the portion, okay? So let's start with that intention, to connect with the energy of this portion, Tetzaveh, which has to do with the priestly garments, okay? So let's talk about that. So let's start in the chapter 27, verse 20th. And it says, "You shall command the Bnei Israel, and they shall take for you pure oil, pure olive oil, pressed for illumination, to kindle a perpetual lamp." Okay, so if we really look at it, when it says pure oil, it's just talking about clear oil that is basically the best oil for this type of spiritual work in the world of action, the world of Assiah, and the world of where we live right now, right? So it's talking here, that we need to keep also a illuminated lamp forever, a Ner Tamid, and we're gonna see what Ner Tamid is. But let's talk about some of the basically deep meaning inside this verse itself. It says, "You shall command the children of Israel, and they shall take for you." In other words, the children of Israel, they needed to take the oil to basically Moshe and Aharon, and it was in order to spark. Or actually, let me read it, because it's better to read it. It says that the children of Israel would take this, and they should take it to Moshe, that a spark from your soul shall be contained within them. So basically, this is a spark of Moshe that was going to be kindled forever in the children of Israel. And we will see this basically in every Shabbat that we are studying, the Torah portion. We are basically connecting to that spark of Moshe, okay? Then Shemen, which is oil, this allude to the Shekhinah, and Shekhinah, and the word Shemen, which is marked right here in red, the word Shemen, the numerical value is 390, And 390 is the same numerical value of Ha-Shekhinah. Not Shekhinah only, Ha-Shekhinah with the Hey at the end, which is the Shekhinah. Okay? So this means actually that the person connects to the Shekhinah, by doing this action, by doing good deeds and learning the Torah, basically, by connecting to Moshe with the weekly Torah portion. And then he talks about pure oil, side sach. The word side, which is olive, which I have marked here in yellow, has the numerical value of 417, which is the same numerical value of the word bemaase. Bemaase means with action. So basically, what it is implying is that our actions, or when we do the mitzvot that we're learning basically on each Torah portion, and when we're doing the mitzvah that we're supposed to perform, the 613 mitzvot, that these actions must be pure, and that these actions, are somehow connected to this shemen, to this kind of like oil that somehow connects us to Moshe, but also Moshiach, because these words are somehow connected, Moshe and Moshiach. Okay, and then he says, Chatit le ma'od, pressed for illumination. Ma'or. Chatit le ma'or. A person should be pressed and bent with humility to occupy himself in learning Torah, and the Torah is called the light. And when we kindle this perpetual lamp in us, this Ner Tamid, by learning the Torah in the way, that we're supposed to learn it, which is Lishma, which is for the sake of heaven, right, for the sake of His name, we understand then this verse better when it says, Leha alot Ner Tamid, and to kindle a perpetual lamp. The word Leha alot Ner, Ner means, the light or the little fire, and Tamid means, eternal, forever. Leha alot also means to elevate this light forever. And what light are we basically elevating, right? To rise up this light on us. And there's a teaching on Kabbalah that has to do with what is called the double concealment, and how when we actually find in ourselves that we're evil, that is called, the revelation of evil in us, and then we start this process of ascending, we find ourselves into a point that is called Sinai, or hatred, the mountain of hatred. And then we need to do like Moshe, climb that mountain, and that mountain, basically in the top, we receive the illumination of Torah, which is called Ner Tamid. And that's a whole class, on itself, but I want you to have an idea of what really is happening here. Even though it's talking about a lamp that is going to be inside the tabernacle, in reality, this is something that is happening in us. Basically, it's a lamp, or soul needs to be illuminated constantly, like a kind of like a fire, like if we were a candle that needs to be burning constantly. Okay, and that fire in us is called the Torah, the light of correction in us. And this verse also could mean that when a person, the person's learning of the Torah and also the good deeds, is very interesting that the Kabbalists emphasize that it's not only learning, it's also doing good deeds for the sake of heaven. And when this person sleeps at night, he meditates that his Ruach and Neshama ascend to the upper worlds. The initials for Ruach and Neshama are found in the word Ner, which means, lamp. So you got Neshama and Ruach. The first letter of Neshama and the first letter of Ruach made the word Ner, which is lamp. Okay? And then pure oil, pressed for illumination. So the initial letters of Shemen Sait, Sach, Chatit La Ma'or which is Shemesh Sait, Sach, Hatit, Lamaor. The first letters of these words, which is Shem, the Shin, the Zain, and the other Zain. Shin, Zain, Zain had the numerical value of 314. 314 is the same numerical value as the name Shaddai, which is Shin, Dalet, Yod. And also, the last letter of pure press and illumination, which is Side, Hatit, Lamaor. So you had the Het, the Tav, and the Resh form the word Keter. So it's telling you what kind of illumination or where that illumination is gonna happen. And as a reference to it, Rabbi Yaakov Hasei that he talks about, or he mentions Isaiah, Yeshayahu 28 verse 5, in which it is said in there, and that day the Lord of hosts will be a crown of joy. So this is, basically telling you what it is all about these words pure pressed for illumination, that spell the word Keter, which is crown. So basically it's a crown of joy that we receive when we're studying Torah properly and that we do what we're supposed to do. The crown will only be for a person who is humble. So you study, the Torah humbly. And the sages explain that in the future Hashem will be a crown upon the heads of those who are righteous and humble, for there is no virtue greater than humility. This is also must be accompanied by safeguarding the Brit, which we're going to talk about the Brit as well in this Parsha. The Brit is hinted in the words Shemen, Sait, Sach, which is Shemen, Sait, Sach, these three words, Shemen, Sait, Sach, which means pure olive oil. As the initial of those letters, Shin, Zain, Sein, means the word Shaddai, and Shaddai alludes to the Brit or the Sephirah Yesod. Okay. Also, like we mentioned before, we have Yesod and we have the Sephirah Keter, and we're gonna see how this Keter is related somehow to Yesod, and how this the Brit has to do with this crown when we talk about the headpiece of the priest. Let's go to chapter 28, verse 3 and 5. And you shall speak to all the wise-hearted people whom I have filled with a spirit of wisdom, and they shall make the garments for Aharon, to sanctify him to serve me. These are the garments that they shall make: a breastplate, an apron, a robe, a tunic of a box-like knit, a turban, and a sash. They shall make holy garments for Aharon, your brother, and his sons to serve me. They shall take the gold, the turquoise, the purple, the scarlet wool, and the linen. And Rabbi Yaakov Hasei wants to tell us by saying that in the Zohar, volume 2, page 254a, he says that the angel Michael is the chief angel of Israel, and he's the angel that actually not only speaks in behalf of the people of Israel and in favor, that he's also situated in the world of Yetzirah. This is according to the Aris Et Chaim, Gate 29, chapter 3. So it says that the study of Mishnah is also in the world of Yetzirah. So when we study the Mishnah, we're strengthening Michael in the same world that he is when we study the Mishnah. And he said, by knowing this, we will know now what this following verse means. And you shall speak to all the wise-hearted people whom I have filled with a spirit of wisdom. And the wise-hearted people are the people that have learned and they review what they have learned. Is they shall make the garments for Aharon. That means that they shall learn the 6 orders of the Mishnah to assist Aharon, which refers here to Michael, who serves as the Kohen Gadol in heaven. So when we make prayers, when we do, fasting and other kind of stuff, some kinds of these basically sacrifices of the soul, this angel Michael is like the Kohen Gadol who basically elevate that prayer and present it in the altar of heaven. And we have talked about that before in other parshot, in which basically there's an altar in heaven that is presented, and then from there we receive something in exchange, right? We receive an influx of light as an answer. And he says, to sanctify him to serve me. These are the garments that they shall make: a breastplate, an apron, a robe, a tunic, a bust-like knit, a turban, and a sash. And if you really look at it, there are 6 items mentioned here, alluding to the 6 orders of the Mishnah. The wise-hearted must take special care to make Aharon garments, symbolizing to make sure that you study these 6 orders of the Mishnah, which will sanctify him, in this case Aharon, or the angel Michael, to serve the Creator, to serve me, to bring that basically to bring that sacrifice to the altar of heaven. And by doing this, when we study the Mishnah, what we're rectifying the 6 extremities, which are the primary attributes of the Sephirah of Malchut. Okay, so they shall take gold, the turquoise, the purple, the scarlet wool, and the linen. The 6 items here, scarlet wool counts as 2, okay, which allude to 6 extremities of the Sephirah of Malchut, and the word of Yetzirah. These extremities shower their influence upon the people which they take. So let's talk about how that falls in the tree of life. So this is the tree of life in the world, the word of Yetzirah. This is where the angel Metatron basically is, and what we see is that there's six divisions in the Mishnah. When we start the Mishnah, we're gonna see that there's Seraim, Moed, Nashim, Nesikim, Kodashim, and Taharot. The breastplate alludes to the first division, which is Seraim, the apron to the Moed, the robe to women, tunic to Nesikim, turban to Kodashim, and the sash, Taharot, to purities. And if you really, the purity things falls into Yesod, which is, about the Brit, about having a pure Brit. And then you have Malchut, and Malchut basically is the one that receives everything. And remember that Yesod is basically the accumulation of all these attributes into this Sephirah that will give them to Malchut. And somehow what you're going to see is that, and in Kabbalah is basically, Keter is in Tifaret, Keter is in Yesod, Keter is in Malchut. So you're going to see that this Keter, this crown there, it also becomes a crown in here in the Brit. Okay. They shall make an apron of gold, turquoise, purple, scarlet wool, and twisted linen, a weaver's craft. It shall have 2 shoulder strap attached to its 2 ends, and it shall be attached. The work of the belt which is upon it shall be of the same workmanship, and shall be made from it. It shall be gold, turquoise, purple, scarlet wool, and twisted linen. And this is where we're going to see, that even though we're talking about the priestly garments, this is related to speech. So Rabbi Yaakov Haseira says that these verses in chapter 28, verses 6 to 8, is alluding to the mouth. This is according to the book of Psalm 34, verses 13-14, where it says, "Who is the man who desires life, who loves days of seeing goods? Guard your tongue from evil and your lips from speaking deceit." It shows that a person's life depends on his mouth. That's why also Shlomo HaMelech, King Solomon, wrote also in Proverbs 6:7, all of man's toils is for his mouth. So throughout the generations, Rabbi Yaakov Haseira says that the sages have basically warned us about be cautious with your speech, because your speech can create angels and your speech can create basically demons as well. So you have to be careful. And Avot 1 verse 17 says, I have found nothing good for one's body except silence. Also in Avot, in chapter 3 verse 17 says, a safeguard for wisdom is silence. Since at the moment of this video, we are in the week of Purim. We're going to celebrate Purim. We studied the Megillah. Also, some of us also read the Mishnah, and we studied the portion called Megillah. In Megillah 18b, in the Mishnah, and also in the Talmud, he says, if speech is silver, then silence is gold. So we see that throughout history, the Kabbalists and the sages and the rabbis and the Ravs, have actually told us, to be careful with our speech. In Talmud Yoma 19b also says, that you shall speak of them words of Torah, implying that you shall speak of them and not of idle chatter. And also in Psalm 58:2 says that furthermore, the verse says, is there indeed silence while you should speak righteousness? So it's also, not only silence is good, but also, when you speak, make sure you speak righteousness. And then in Talmud Chulin 89a tell us you should speak righteousness. So we should be careful with our speech. We should be always using our speech to do good. So there are also, as we can see, some speech that is acceptable, and that's the one that has to do with righteousness. So now let's go to the verses. They shall make an apron. The word for apron has a numerical value of 85, which is ephod, and that is the same numerical value as the word pe, which is mouth. So the verse already warning us about the proper speech, right? Then the word sahav, which is gold. The word for sahav is gold. This alludes to the verses that we just read in where it says, if silence is silver, then if speech is silver, then silence is gold. Okay, so it's talking about pay, mouth. Now it's telling you silence. Now the turquoise purple, which is Techelet ve'argaman, the word argaman, turquoise, which we have here, argaman, is an acronym for all types of speech we have mentioned. The forbidden speech, which is asur, this is the word argaman, separated down, and the first letter, which is aleph, is for asur, forbidden. The second letter, which is rech, is for reshot, which is reshut is actually permitted. Gamur is learning. Mitzvah, which is a commandment, and then the other one, which is nikrat, which is cut off. So the forbidden one basically is related to the verse that says, you shall speak of them the words of Torah and not have idle chatter. The permitted one, which is reshut, refers to speaking in order to conduct business. A person is allowed to do this in order to learn a livelihood. Okay, then the next one, which is gamur just refers to Torah studying. Mitzvah refers to the Torah in action, refers to the words such as rebuke and ethical teachings. Then cut off is what happened to a person who speaks lashon hara and profanity. Okay, and the word techelet, which is together with techelet argaman. The word techelet may also be read as tachlit, which means purpose. So this is tachlit here, the word tachlit, which means purpose. So the main purpose of one's mouth is to guard it from the types of speech that are hinted in the word argaman. A person should refrain from forbidden speech, and we should speak words of Torah. And if we talk to other people, it should be in a way that is edifying, not a way that is judgmental or a way that is going to create negative things, not only in our environment but also within our soul. Because if you really look at it, a person that likes to spread lies or whatever, that is not doing the right thing when it comes to speech, that person is creating demons, and those demons stick in around that person. In this case, it's like thoughts that continuously bother this person, and sometimes, like it says in the writings of the rabbis, one sin will lead to another sin. So one lie will lead to another lie and another lie and another lie, right? So that's why we need to be careful when we speak deceit. We need to do the right thing. Now, techelet shani, scarlet wool, or actually is tola'at shani. Tola'at shani. Tola'at shani is scarlet wool. There are two types of speech that have been permitted conducting business and the learning of Torah, right? One is to earn our livelihood, to make sure we have food to eat, shelter, and all the things that we need. And the other one is to make sure we have also the food for the soul, which is learning Torah. But they should be, they should be spoken in humility and modesty. The word tala'at, scarlet, also means worm, which is the scarlet dye that in the past, they used to get from a worm called that way, tala'at. Now, the word shani for wool can also be understood as two, which is shani, implying that a person needs to be humble, even regarding to these two speech, right, that we mentioned, earning a livelihood and learning Torah. Then he talks about the twisted linen. It says Veshesh Mashzar. These phrases allude to the following. The mouth is referred by three names. Okay? And these three names are Pei, Lashon, and Sapat. And basically Pei is mouth, Lashon is tongue, and Sapat is lips, the lips. The word Pei has a numerical value of 85, or 60, 63 plus 22, which gives us, the number 85, which is the same as the word Pei. And the number 63, where we get that number 63? The number 63 is basically the name Yod He Vav He, spelled out in full as Yod Vav Dalet He Yod Vav Aleph Vav He Yod. And then the 22 is basically the Aleph Beit, which is comprised of 22 letters. And if we add to this number 85 the Kolel, which is 1 for the word itself, or for the number itself, it gives us 86, and 86 is equal to Elohim, the name Elohim. Now Elohim, if we spell the name Elohim and we expand it, what we're going to have to say Aleph Lamed Pei, Lamed Mem Dalet, Hey Yod, Yod Vav Dalet, Mem, and Mem Sofit. And that equals 300. So when we add the 86 of Elohim with the 300 of the expanded name of Elohim, that gives us 386. Now 386 is the number for the word tongue, Lashon, right? And also equals the name Shekhinah. So it's all these Pei, Lashon, Shekhinah. Then what we have is Sapat. Is also have this numerical value of 885 plus 1 will give you also the Shekhinah. So all this is telling us that these words, the twisted linen, basically is telling us about the relationship of our speech and the Shekhinah. And remember, when we raise our prayers, when we're praying, basically what we're doing is that we're using our lips, we're using our mouth, we're using our tongue to raise the Shekhinah from the lower level. And also the word here, Chesh, may also be understood as six. Six what? It's a six names of Hashem which we have mentioned, and basically, the Yod-Heh, and then expanded, then Elohim, expanded, Elohim, and then in the other two words, Lashon and Sapat. But also has to do with the six extremities that are above the Sephira Malchut, which is Zerampin. Okay, the weaver's craft, Ma'aseh Hashev, this may also be understood as the product of one's thoughts. This is where, let me see if I can, yeah, that's it, that's the slide. The word twisted, which is Mashzar, maybe it can be rearranged in the following way as Shem Ras. Shem Ras means there is a secret. Then Sham Sor, there is a stranger. What does this mean? It means, that this word basically is telling us that if we are studying the Torah properly, if we are studying the Torah with the proper intention, if we are basically trying to keep that light upon our head, the Ner Tamid, constantly burning, we will find that there's a secret. The secrets are going to be revealed to us, right? But these secrets are going to be revealed if we connect to it properly. Now, if we just don't study the Torah at all, or we're studying the Torah for egoistic, basically, desires, egoistic intentions, then what we have is Shamzar. There is a stranger. Who is that stranger? A stranger is basically the evil angel Samael. Okay? And the evil angel Samael is basically the Yeser Hara, the evil incarnation. So we are basically opening the doors for this force of Tumah, this force of impurity to come and control our lives. Now, it continues saying, and he shall have 2 shoulder straps attached to his 2 hands, and it shall be attached. 2 shoulder straps. The word katafot, which means shoulder strap, may be arranged as tachefot, which means sewing, similar to the word tachipa, which is found in the Mishnah. And there's no elaboration here, so I'm not going to go into it. You're going to continue attached to its 2 ends. A person should imagine that his lips are sewn and attached together. Basically, that silence. He's talking about silence, right? The work of the belt which is upon it shall be of the same workmanship. Basically, all that is is implying the following. All these have to do basically with the care a person should have when it comes to the words, to make sure that everything that we say is not out of arrogance, that we are not using our words to deceive people, and that this idea of having right speech, right, must be engraved in our hearts and carry out purely for the sake of heaven. And then we can understand the following verse, the work of the belt which is upon it. Okay, the work may be as understood as thought, because the word for the work is a chashev. Chashev, it's just like thought, when I mean hashuv, I'm thinking or things like that. Purity of speech must also be pure. A person must not only have pure speech, but also the thoughts must be pure. Okay, and when a person speaks, they might say good things, but the thoughts might have a different intention. So that's why it is important also that not only the speech, but also the way a person is speaking, is using the speech. So let's go to chapter 28, verse 9 and 10. You shall take 2 shoham stone and engrave upon them the names of the son of Israel, 6 of their names on the one stone, and the names of the 6 remaining, 1 on the second stone, according to the order of their birth. So there are 2 Torahs basically. Still here, the 2 shoham stones, and there are 2 Torahs. There's the oral Torah and the written Torah. Both of them were given to Moshe at Mount Sinai, and I'm gonna put it, like I learned it, from my teacher. It's like when you look at it, it's like the written Torah is basically like this compressed file. Talking in modern days, computer science. It's like this compressed file that contain all these folders and pages and books and everything in it. But it's a compressed file. It's just like a zip file. And then when that was given to Moshe, he was given as the written Torah. But there's an oral Torah, and the oral Torah is basically what you may call the software that will enable that file or zip file or compressed file to open its content, to reveal all the content that there is. And there are basically 5 books of Moshe, right? 5 books of Moshe. But then with the oral Torah, what you have is countless books, right? That can be basically discovered from opening this compressed file that we just received at Mount Sinai. So you gotta look at it that way. So the 2 shoham stones, which are the oral Torah and the written Torah, basically what we can, if we move these letters of the word shoham, shoham, which is shem, hey, mem, we can move them around and we can have them as mem, shin, hey. And from Shohan, now we have Moshe. Okay, from Shem, Hey, from Shin, Hey, Mem, we got Mem, Shin, Hey, which is Moshe. Basically, everything was given to Moshe. So the Shoham stone may be read as the stones of Moshe. So when we're studying every week the Torah portion, what we are doing basically is taking these Shoham stones and downloading that information every Shabbat when we study the Torah. And then it says, engrave upon them the names of the son of Israel. Basically, that the Creator wishes to bring merit to the people of Israel, that each one, as much as he can, may discover new ideas, either in the written Torah or the oral Torah. These ideas will be credited to his name, and it will be a merit for him. For him means, the person that is studying the Torah. And then 6 of their name refers to the name of the Tanaim. The Tanaim are the sages who wrote the 6 orders of the Mishnah on the one stone, meaning, they are the ones that are going to be that are the explanation of the written Torah. This is the first stone. And then the names of the 6 remaining, this refers to the name of the Amoraim, the other sages. And this is, referring to the second stone. And they're the ones that authored the Gemara, which is the explanation of the Mishnah, a commentary upon the second stone. And it said, according to the order of the birth, the words are exactly as I had given them to you. This is basically Jacob Kaseira stating like the Creator is talking to us. All this is in order to bring merit to the people of Israel, that they may have their own share in the Torah. So basically, and something that you need to understand is that also, looking at this from a different perspective, when he says, 6 names of the children of Israel on one side, 6 names of the children of Israel on the other side, even though on one side, it's referring to the Tanaim, the sages that wrote the 6th order of the Mishnah, and then about the Amoraim, the other sages, we can see this in a different way, as every person that belongs to Israel should also think and know that their name is also written in the Torah, that their names are also written in those shoham stones. Okay, so if you are a person that considers yourself Yashar Kel, those who want to go directly to him, to the Creator, part of Israel, then your name is written in these shoham stones as well. Okay, and it says, you shall make a breastplate of judgment of a woven designed like the craftsmanship of the apron shall you make it, of gold, turquoise, purple, and scarlet wool, and twisted linen shall you make it. Square shall it be folded, its length a half cubit, and its width a half cubit. You shall fill it with stone mountains for rows of stone. And then it continues. So this is from chapter 28, verse 15 and 17. So Jacob Hazael says that this refers to the Brit. Then he says that the primary purpose of us living in the physical realm is to safeguard the Brit, and a person that does that is considered a tzaddik. That's the reason why Joseph was referred as Joseph HaTzadik, Joseph the righteous one, because he was tested in a great manner in Egypt, and he was able to guard the Brit. Also, the people who were living in Egypt, in Misraim, they safeguarded the Brit, and that's the reason why they were able to get out of Egypt in a quick way. Basically, the redemption was quicker than they thought. They didn't have to wait so many years like it was predicted in the beginning. So, he says that the Brit alludes to many different things. Let's go to the first one, the word Brit. Brit means covenant, Brit. When we put the word Brit all the way down like this, it gives us basically, or it's kind of like an acronym for Briah, Rishon, Yetzirah, and Tachton. Okay, Briah is basically the word of creation. Rishon is the word of Yetzirah, Atziluth. Yetzirah is Yetzirah, and Tachton is Assiah. And you might say, they're kind of out of order, but that's the way that it's written. I'm not going to change the order of the word. We're going to go by how the word is written, Brit. And Rishon should be here on the top, right? But then we're going to have the word repeat instead of Briah, Brit. Okay? But Rishon is going to be Atziluth. Briah is going to be Briah. Yetzirah is Yetzirah. And then Tachton is going to be Assiah. Also, the word Brit has the numerical value of 612 and is the same numerical value as the word Torah when we add 1 for the word itself, the Kolel, equals 613, which is Torah. Okay? The word for Torah. It is also the numerical value of the word Irat, which is a fear of, when 1 is added, and of the words, the 2 words for Gamilut, Hasidim, which is act of kindness. Gamilut Hasidim. So it's the same numerical value of Gamilut Hasidim, and also for the word, of fear of. And this is also, the something to understand. We first, there's some stages, which we are in double concealment, as they call it. We, in that process, find ourselves as evil. We know that we're evil beings, and we need to correct that. So we start to correct that. We correct that because we are in fear, right? Then after that, after we do the correction, we continue working. We find ourselves then doing the things that the Creator wants from us, but we start doing it out of love, okay? So that's why in here it talks, about the fear of, is telling us about that. But then when we start doing good deeds, when we start doing, these corrections and everything, then we do it out of love. And then it says, that the Brit also refers to the sign of Hashem, right? And it also refers to the Torah, Shabbat, and all these are signs that we need to safeguard. These are signs, that are part of our covenant. Then it says, the sign of the Brit is also alluded to the letter Vav. When spelled Vav, Yod, Vav, the first Vav represents the body, and the added Vav represents the Brit. And the Zohar says that Jacob and Joseph, and we talk about this when we're talking about how basically the correction of the Brit was done by Joseph, even though it's considered Jacob, who needed to do that correction. It was done through Joseph. So Jacob and Joseph are considered to be the same body. Jacob is the body, while Joseph is the Brit. Okay? Now, if a person does not guard the Brit, it's like if they're taking a Vav away from the word, from the letter Vav when it's spelled in full, which is Vav, Yod, Vav, that's Viv. When you take the last Vav, you don't guard your Brit. Now the letter Vav spelled in full doesn't sound like a Vav. It's a V, right? So it becomes basically it goes to the attributes of judgment instead of the attributes of kindness, sweetening the attribute of judgment. So let's go now to make sure I have time to read from Ramchal. So let's go to chapter 28, verse 36. And it says that this verse, as in the previous one, alludes to the Brit again, to the Brit Milah, as follows. The word Milah, when it's spelled in full, as Mem, Yod, Vav, Dalet, Lamed, Mem, Dalet, and Hey, Yod, and adding one, the kolel for the word itself, has the numerical values of 190. And 190 is the same numerical value of the word tzitz, which is headpiece, which is the word Milah. This is the word Milah here. And we are expanding that, basically, expanding it, the first letter of Milah, expanding that. It gives 190 plus 1, it gives 6, which is a headpiece. And now we can understand what it says, here. You shall make a headpiece, meaning, refers to the Brit Milah, which is the circumcision. So it says, Tzahav, Tahor, pure gold. It shall be clean and with no impurities. It shall be like a crown on you. And you shall engrave in it, you shall engrave upon it, engrave like a signet ring. So the numerical value of the word Brit, adding 12, one for each letter that is spelled in full. So we have the word Brit, and we got 3 letters. These are 12 letters here. That will give you a numerical value of 624. And this is the same as the value of 6 different names of the Creator that are spelled in this way. So you have Ehyeh, spelled basically with a Yod in the second Hey, then spelled with a Hey, then spelled with an Aleph, right? Give you 161, 151, 143, that's 455. Then we have the name of Yohe and Vahe, and this will give us, when it's spelled, the same way over here, adding a Yod, a He, and an Aleph, Yod, He, and Aleph, and a He. We're also adding a Yod, Aleph, and no letter in the middle, and also Yod, Aleph. That will give us basically 72, 45, 52, which is, you must be at this point familiarized with this name, because this is basically Ab, Ma, and Bon from the Parsuf that we've been speaking before. We're missing this Sag in here, which would be, so this is a Chokma. Bina is not there. We have Serampin and Mahut, okay, which is a Nukva, the female aspect. But forget about Sag, it's not here, right? But when it's spelled in full like that, gives us 165. You add those, it will give us 624, and 624 is the same numerical value as the word Brit when it's spelled in full like that. Now these 3 names of Hashem, Ehyeh, spelled in full, mentioned above, and combined of 455, which is the same as the word Hotam, and Hotam is basically seal, like a mark, okay? And this word Hotam can also be arranged as Homat, and Homat basically means a wall, basically to create like a boundary, right? Which is what we have here when in the word Tahum, boundary. So it tells us that the Brit is the boundary that separates us or creates this wall against the Sitra Achra, against this evil inclination. And also it tells us that the seal is basically the name in us of Ehyeh, this name of Ehyeh, this name of that basically the value is 455. So let's go now and read from Ramchal. We still have some time. So let's go to Shemot, chapter 29, verse 1, where it says, that, and this is what which you should do to them in order to sanctify them to minister for me. Take 1 bull and 2 rams that are unblemished. So this is basically talking about when the Kohen, in this case, Aharon, Nadav, Avihu, Eleazar, and Itamar were supposed to be initiated as priests, what needed to be done. And to attain such a level, basically, of priest, you gotta have a high level of or connection with the Creator, specifically be a person of peace, a peacemaker. So in order to make peace with the Creator, you gotta have that in your as well. It says, that Aharon was a man of peace, a peacemaker, right? So let's read about this, So Aharon and his son, they were basically given this I would say, responsibility to connect the people of Israel, the children of Israel, with the Creator. They needed basically to move evil towards good. Okay, so it's like in Psalm 34:15 says, turn from evil and do good. So the offerings were basically done in order to do that. It says the Kohanim, following, after we began with the Hatat, which served to appease the Tumah and evil, to entice it to depart from the Kedusha. And Hatat is offered to atone for an intentional sin. Okay, this is an offering that is done for a person that is done something intentional. And a person who sins follow the path of evil, allowing the Tumah to grab hold of them. The Tumah seeks to prosecute the person and cause him to be punished. The Hatat offering appeases the Tumah and keeps it occupied with the korban, and not the person, in effect removing the prosecution against this person. So following the Hatat offering, the Kohanim are now getting rid of the Tumah. The next step then was a set-off to do good. Okay, this was accomplished by the other two offerings, which are the Olah and the Shelamim. The Olah means to elevate. This offering was to elevate, right? The offering elevated the Shekhinah, and the Shelamim, as the word itself says, was to create shalom, to create peace. Refers to the unification of the spiritual realms in peace. The unification of the ramping with its nukva, with its female counterpart, which is Malchut. And remember, when we talk about female, male, we're not talking about female, male, as we know on this realm. We're talking about spiritual forces, spiritual aspects of creation. It was through these offerings that Moshe was able to create the Sur, Mara, Aseh, Tov in the Kohanim, and effectively prepare them for this service. There were also 3 sacrifices. There were 3 meal offerings, and these 3 meal offerings were from matzah and not leavened bread. And it was an allusion to the idea that in order to come close to holiness, Kedusha, a person needed to be humble and be like the matzah, not inflated like that bread. Okay. So on chapter 29 verse 2 says, and breads of matzot and loaves of matzot mixed with oil and waffles of matzot smeared with oil. He said these categories of matzot correspond to other portions of the soul, the neshama, the ruach, and the nefesh. And each category of these offerings consisted of 10 matzot to rectify the 10 aspects of the soul. The first meal offering corresponds to nefesh, the lowest of the levels of the soul. This offering was thicker and contained no oil, representing less refined levels of kedusha. The second category of meal, the loaves, were thinner and corresponded to the more refined ruach, and that was a higher level of the soul, or is a higher level of the soul. And the offering included oil. However, oil was mixed, but it wasn't visible. The final set correspond to the neshama, the highest level of the soul, and these were basically wafers, and they were thinner loaves, and these loaves represent the most refined or significant level of kedusha, of holiness, and oil was visible and smeared upon it. And then he mentions, that you shall slaughter the ram and take from its blood and place it in the middle part of Aharon's right ear, and the middle part of the right ear his son, and on the right hand thumb, and on their right big toes. And what he's telling us here, that basically this formula, or this was supposed to connect their neshama, the ruach, and nefesh to the level of kedusha, of holiness. And what is happening here is the head, where the ears are located, being the seat of neshama. The body, where the hands extend from it, is the seat of ruach. The stomach, from where the legs extend from it, are the seat of nefesh. The blood placed in the 3 locations create a connection on an external as well as internal level, since the Kohanim needed to be aligned specifically with the attribute of Chesed. And very important to remember that when we talk about Aharon and the priesthood, is Chesed. Chesed, even though they do sacrifices, but it's because they want to connect the people to the Creator. So they are from the attribute of Chesed. The blood was placed in the right of each of their limbs, right ear, right hand, right foot, because the right represents Chesed, okay? And this is why everything was in the right part of their body. Now let's go. We have a little time here. So in chapter 28, verse 1 of Shemot, it says, and you, we're going back, you should bring close to yourself Aharon your brother and his sons with him from among the Bnei Israel to minister to me. And we're going to read a little bit from here and then finish. It says, Hashem assigned the position of Kohen Gadol, of high priest, to Aharon and his 4 sons, right? And the job of a priest is to basically connect the Bnei Israel with the Creator, right? They're from the aspect of Chesed. The word korban, which is Kuf, Resh, Beit, Nun, is from the word Kerev, which is Kuf, Resh, Beit, which means to bring close. The korban, when it was properly offered and properly done by this priest, was supposed to connect the people of Israel with the Creator. Okay, so now we can see this idea and describe the unification of husband and wife working together to produce children, sustain them and educate them. He says here, Hassan teaches that Aharon was a lover of shalom, of peace, and a pursuer of peace. This is according to Avot 1:12. Constantly seeking to create an atmosphere of peace between man and his fellow man, between husband and wife. Shalom, the word shalom, represents the unification of male and female, husband and wife. When there is shalom, there is unification, and when there is no shalom, the unification cannot exist. Okay, that's why we say Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom means, the peace of Shabbat, and it's because we want that unification. We want that unification of the Shekhinah with the Creator. Okay, and this is basically the same concept applied in a different level. Aharon's pursuit of Shalom made him most fitting for the task of creating these unifications through the korbanot, and being assigned the most exalted position, which is the Kohen Gadol. And he says, that Aharon had basically, the Kohen Gadol had 8 garments. 4 garments referred to as Begdi Laban and 4 as Begdi Sahav. Each group of 4 garments represent another name of Hashem. The Laban or Begdi Ladam represents Hashem 4-letter name of the Yod-He and the Vav-He, while the Begdi Sahav represents the 4-letter name of Adonai. The combination of these 2 names represents the unification of these 2 attributes of Hashem in the spiritual realm. The Yod-He and the Vav-He, it's Serampin, and the Adonai is actually Malchut. So keep that as Serampin, the 6 upper Sefirot, and Malchut will be Adonai. Aharon was to effect this or make this unification happen, and he wore these 2 set of garments during the service in order to represent this. And this is the reason he was also called the Kohen Gadol, Kohen Gadol, the high priest, because he was the only one that was granted the privilege among all the other priests to enter the Kodesh HaKadoshim, the Holy of Holies. And in there, he basically will see that he will basically, be in interaction with spiritual worlds that are divided into 4 main realms: Atziluth, Briah, Yetzirah, and Assiah, and descending order of sanctity, of course. Atziluth is the higher realms where there are no creations, only Hashem and godliness it says there. And then the second realm, the realm of creation, where there's the Neshamot, the soul, and the Malachim, the angels. In the highest level within the realm of creation, Briah serves as the root of all creations and is referred as the Kodesh HaKadoshim, the Holy of Holies. So this is entering into Briah, basically, when it says, the Kohen Gadol was entering the Kodesh HaKadoshim, is the world of that level of Briah. The remaining realms, Yetzirah and Assiah, are simply outgrowth of that root or physical world, parallels the spiritual realms, with Eretz Israel and Aharon Israel being the parallel of the lower realms of the Kodesh HaKadoshim, of the Beit HaMikdash being the physical parallel of the spiritual realm of Kodesh HaKadoshim. So that's why, this place in Jerusalem is so important for so many people from different religions, because there's a special force in there, special light. The Kodesh HaKadoshim was the created root and source of our physical world. The priest, the Kohen, specifically the Kohen Gadol in this case, through the korbanot, he brought the outgrowth closer to the root. So they basically was ascending, making this world ascend from where they were, from the level to the higher level, and therefore allowed to enter the Kodesh HaKadoshim. So this is something very interesting, and with this we're gonna finish. The physical world may be classified into 4 general categories. Beings which speak, that means man, living beings, animals, vegetations, which is plants, and inanimate objects such as rocks. So you got man, animals, vegetables, and mineral, right? A korban, which is a sacrifice, combined all 4 of these physical outgrowths, which were brought close to the root, to Hashem, by the Kohen. The korban combined man, who performed the sacrifice, the living being that was sacrificed, which is the animal, the flour for the meal offering represents the vegetable, and the inanimate was represented by the salt, which is the mineral, to accompany this sacrifice. So in this way, these different levels were elevated. Aharon, the pursuer of peace, was the appropriate person for that position, and then after him the successive Kohanim Gedolim, the other high priests, that played an integral role in the service, the Avodah, of bringing the branches closer to the roots. And that's the reason they were allowed to enter the Kodesh HaKadoshim, the world of Briah, in the Beit HaMikdash. And when they did that, what they did was to bring closer our physical world to the spiritual root of this physical realm. So with that, we finish our study. I hope you have found this class interesting and insightful. As always, if you have any question, feel free to visit us at www.receivingtheupperlight.com and ask your questions, or if you want to be part of our Facebook group, you can also ask your questions there and it will be answered. Okay, what we need to learn about this Parsha is that when we're learning about the garments of the priest, what we're learning is about the Brit. We're learning about these different forces that are within us, because this is not something that is about the priest only, it's also about us. And that priest within us, that forces, that attire that we're wearing, or soul basically, is or has something called a Kohen Gadol that will elevate this offering and will help also elevate the worlds. And there's also assistance, whoever comes to purified is assisted, right? That's what the sages say. So when we study the Mishnah, we are also being participant of this korbanot that the Kohen Gadol was doing. When we study the Mishnah, we are also helping correct that word of Yetzirah that we talk about, and we can not only connect to it, but we can also elevate sparks, from the lower world, like the priest did when he entered the Kadosh Kadoshim. We can do the same thing, believe it or not, with the proper intention, with the proper connection with the light, and we can elevate the words as well, especially on Shabbat when we study the Torah. And the Torah is basically that light that we need to be connected all the time. The Ner Tamid, when we have our Nefesh and Ruach, or Ruach and Neshama actually working together, and in connecting us basically to this light that Moshe received on Mount Sinai. And remember, it's all at the end about the covenant, guarding the Brit, guarding our tongue, our mouth, guarding our speech, and guarding our way of behaving. That's why Gamilut Hasidim is so important as well, to make sure that we're doing the proper thing, because that is also Torah. It has the same numerical value as Torah, has the same numerical value as Brit, which is covenant. Okay, so keep that in mind, and for the next Parsha, because in the next Parsha is going to continue adding more and more. So this is all for now. I will see you once again in the next study next week on Parsha Tetzaveh. Okay, so I'll see you later, and Shabbat Shalom.